Hello and welcome to another episode of Comprehending Consciousness. My name is Allie with A. Marie Speaks, and I created this series especially for people who are kind of newly waking up, or maybe new to the spiritual world, new to the conscious community, or looking at that new age community, and wondering what all these new words and phrases are talking about, right? A lot of it is trickling down into the mainstream these days. It's getting harder and harder for, all the normies to turn a blind eye to the splitting that's happening across the world. It's a beautiful process happening. Yeah, it's chaotic. It's full of catalysts and disruptions. But it's a time for clearing distortions. It's a seeking of truth, and that's what the New Age movement, the conscious community, those who are talking about ascension and those kind of things. That's the truth that's underlying and connecting all of these different kind of groups and societies, from esoteric to occult, to religious, all of these different ideologies are at the core, advertising at least, that they are seeking the truth. Whether or not they are seeking the truth for positive or negative alignment and orientation, that's a different question. But if that kind of stuff interests you, I talk a lot about energy work, polarization, the ether, and how energetic exchanges work and stuff like that. In other videos on my channel, mostly on BitChute. So if you're finding this Comprehending Consciousness over on YouTube, I highly suggest checking my BitChute channel out, because I talk about a lot of excuse me, I'm sorry. I talk about a lot of other kind of controversial topics over on BitChute, where I'm not going to be triggering algorithms and forcing flaggings and things like that. I don't want to feed that kind of system, so I keep that content off of YouTube. But anyways, to the topic of Comprehending Consciousness, episode 29 today is going to be misinformation / disinformation. Now, this is kind of more of a woke word versus a conscious word, or a spiritual kind of angle, but I felt like it was so important to talk about it and to bring it up in this series, because, like I said, hopefully this is a bridging of the gap between 3D negative orientation with like the matrix, and then trying to realign and change your view and your path to one that is aligned with some things that feel good to you, and seeking your purpose and truth in the bigger picture, in the organic setup or matrix, whatever way you want to kind of look at that. So I felt like it's important, and it could be relevant, helpful, to put in the mix here in this series, this topic of misinformation and disinformation that we see just absolutely running rampant in normie world today. So welcome to the episode number 29. Oh, last thing before I get started here quickly, if you are new to my channel, thank you so much for checking me out. Like I said, this is episode 29, so I have a bunch of others and lots of other playlists and things like that here on YouTube or BitChute, wherever you're finding me. So thank you so much for joining me, and feel free to check out all of my previous videos on, a slew of different terms and phrases that we see a lot in the mainstream, and also in the offshoots, kind of conspiracy fringes sort of world. So misinformation, disinformation, clearly everybody is talking about this today. And it ties a lot into the really firm structures and parameters that we see the worlds of academia and medicine and quote-unquote science, all of that, because science is really supposed to be just a working protocol, a set of way of thinking, scientific thinking. And that should span across all categories and topics. But anyways, it's been kind of called a category of its own. you know? So between those worlds and also kind of like the Hollywood mainstream world, and now it's since 2020, it's kind of, everybody used to be in sort of like a bubble, that, you know, before 2020, and like a literal, maybe like a plastic bubble around each of us, and that was kind of like taken away, and everything's been like inserted into our direct world, especially along the lines of misinformation, disinformation, gathering of information, what sources to trust, how to incorporate it into your own world and make choices for yourself, and opinions to rely on or go with, has really all of a sudden taken all of our direct worlds and asked us to make real choices, because our jobs or our kids' schools or places we volunteered or places we used to like to go to enjoy and spend time or vacation at, or hobbies and things like that, all of these places all of a sudden had this really direct input into our worlds, inside of our bubble, poking us, telling us, you have to make a choice here. You have to decide, are you going to compromise and bow down and submit to servitude, or are you going to take the chance, and uphold your boundaries, your sacred sovereignty, and stand in your worth and say, no, I won't do that. There's other choices. I see differently. I have a right to body autonomy. And so with that kind of thrusting into all of our worlds, the infringements that's happened, it's called up, and it's really kind of asked all of us to define what kind of information we want to listen to, what kind of sources that we trust, how much we actually read and listen to and take in, absorb, contemplate, think through actual information, and how much we just read a quick headline, grab a quick answer from some expert or some person that we've just been designating our thoughts to, our, discernment to, and allowing others to make choices for us, and then just parroting it out robotically, repeating. Repetition is the most basic form of mind control. And so we have to be conscientious of what we are just parroting out, and why, and slow it down and make those words our own, right? I talk about this a lot too with creating freedom, not slavery, and that has to do with energetic working, about how the intentions that you have while you're creating things, and that imprints the creation and sets it up for its potentiality and for its homeostasis settings and its vibrational understandings and frequency and all of that. So if that interests you too, you can check out, I'll put some links in the video description or maybe in the comment section for my podcast and stuff about that kind of work, and other videos that I've done on the tyrant template and the creator mindset and things. But for this episode for now, important that I want to get through is that because we see this drastic debate forced upon us about misinformation, disinformation, who to trust, who not to trust, experts versus personal connection, or, corporate versus local, or, outsourcing versus keeping it internal. Because we see the greater external picture, this kind of reflection of the world, the absolute external world of media, of the television, all government agencies and stuff like that, large, big picture entities, pushing on the individual layer this choice, this theme, this portrayal of reality, basically forcing us to make these decisions, and imposing on us the debate of the back and forth of who to trust and what's misinformation, what's real, and what's truth and what's lies, what's fake news, what's real news. Who do you trust? Who are you listening to? Which expert do you think is the best? And who's qualified for this and who's not? This is a forced tactic of the negative agenda. This is what happens at the crumbling of empires. This is a takeover. We have to remember. Now, whether you're brand new to waking up, whether you see it on a conscious level, on an energetic level, spiritual, it's all of them. It's multifaceted, and it's taking place. It's undeniable. You cannot turn a blind eye to this anymore. You cannot push aside decisions and choices anymore. There's no time for it. And you'll notice in your own life, things are pushing you. Reactions are happening very, very quickly. At every choice point, bam, you get the repercussions. You're feeling the karmatic pulls. You're feeling either the breaking down of things and the loosening and moving through, or the blockading and stalking and surveillance and slowing down and forcing to close. Everything's very quick these days. And that's because source energy, the ether, our whole experience, whatever you love to see, the orchestra of, the procession is happening. And the clock is, just like a clock will turn to a certain time, it's midnight, Cinderella. There's no two ways about it. The magic's kicking in. The repercussions are coming. The consequences are being felt. And so this is why the mainstream and the whole show of it all, the magicians and, all of their nonsense with the Matrix, this is why they're pushing this agenda so hard and making everybody feel like they must make these choices and they must align with the mainstream experts. They must go with what the whole herd is doing, the collective is doing. And so they showcase across their mainstream platforms that are all funded and paid for, all in cahoots together. We all know this. It's nothing new. But it's important to stay conscious about your sovereign point of discernment when you're even looking at, even just allowing it to pass through your energetic mental space, these concepts, these headlines, these news reports, whether you're scrolling and it's just coming, it's all being absorbed into you. Into your essence, into your logical mind, into your subconscious, into your ego, whatever you want to see all these kind of things as. You're interacting with those data points and information. That's your point of responsibility. That is the timer on the clock or whatever. That's the go, that's the bang of the gun at the start of the race. It's up to you and us, each one of us, and then the collective will, to respond in our sovereign worth, to respond out of discernment and personal responsibility, honor, acceptance for what is, and a seeking of solutions that are harmonious to all involved. Even if it's just you and some of your inner pieces of you, make sure everybody's happy. Talk with your shadow. Find out what it's irking it about it and offer it, hey, let's find something that works for all of us because we're one. Same thing with when it's in a group setting or real people, if it's your children, if it's siblings, if it's parents, if you can get on a common ground of working and sharing information that you're both worthy because you have this gift of life bestowed upon you as beings. We're all worthy. We all have problems. We all have, misconceptions to work through, control mechanisms to break, and mind control things to get rid of, and traumas, and all of these things. We all have them. We look at the place we were birthed into right now. We're warriors. This is a negative, overlaid matrix prison system. They're attempting to really kick into gear and structure into our poor, well, not poor, but I feel just bad for her, Mother Earth. She's abundant. She's never poor. But she can be tired. She's taken advantage of, and she's sick of it. And so are a lot of humans, and we're tired of enslavement. We don't want to live inside that crazy matrix. It's so negative. Look at it. It's full of fear. It's full of shame and guilt and aggression, hatred, misconceptions and border. It's all these checkpoints and surveillance and bowing down to experts and conforming to certain things, virtue signaling about others at the right time. It's such a pack of lies, and it's such an uncomfortable dance step. Why are we all doing it? Now I'm off on a tangent. I'm so sorry. I try to keep these comprehending consciousness videos short and to the point, and so I've gotten a little bit onto a rant and tangent. I'm sorry. But it's so crucial for us to understand. This is the angle of approach for the tyrants, who are orchestrating the takeover. And to get us into this point where we can't discern for ourselves, where we're reaching out to experts, grabbing them onto them like lifeboats, like save us and pull us in and give me the right thing, just show me what to do to survive, to get through. And like that's not the creator's idea of the approach for this beautiful gift of life that we've been given here. So if we could tap into that, and then we see the lies of misinformation, disinformation. We see the whole plot and ploy and the mask within the mainstream, and we wouldn't pay attention to it, and we wouldn't be drawn into it, and we wouldn't be seeking validations about truth, because truth is undeniable, truth is reoccurrent, truth vibrates at a frequency which is felt in your heart center and your guts, in the very essence of your being, because it reverberates through the ether, and there's no two ways about it. It's getting to listen to it and understanding it that will really guide you to what is false lies and what is truth for yourself, and that's where, through the sharing of information, that you can actually get to real truth and get away from what's being fed to you on a platter by the mainstream as the truth, as the best expert, as the top of this and the top of that. Better listen to them because they're definitely right. And that is a whole other layer of control mechanisms. I'm going to talk further about that at a later time, about how we really need to kind of step back from this obsession with experts. It really has to do with the scientism, new age shift that the negative agenda is imposing upon us, to kind of swap religious dogma for a scientism kind of dogmatic way of thinking, that really imprisons real science and real discovery and real understanding, and forces everybody to see it from the sponsored way, unfortunately. But yeah, I'll get into that a little bit at a deeper time. For this here, I just kind of wanted to give an idea to people about what nonsense the entire streaming headlines about misinformation and disinformation is. It's all been orchestrated as a trigger point. It's just a little mind control tactic. It's the slave program that the Matrix is giving you, all of us. And we instill it, and we're running on it and look at it. It's specifically to just filter out negative energy, so that when you see a headline, a clickable, you see people talking back and forth about what's misinformation, what's real, it triggers fear and shame, and you're feeding the negative agenda, and that's all it cares about. It doesn't even care about ever seeking real truth or offering up honesty or anything, feeling good, positive solutions. It doesn't care about that. It just cares about triggering those negative emotions. And so I hope that I hope this episode has been enlightening. It went a little longer than I expected, but I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that you'll check me out next time for episode number 30, where I'm going to talk just a bit more sort of in the same angle of seeking truth, but I'm going to talk about the Gnostics versus Gnosis. So if that kind of stuff interests you, then you can find my next video, episode 30, or always you can find me on Spotify, Telegram, YouTube, BitChute, all under A. Marie Speaks. Check out amariespeaks.com, where I have a plethora of online tips and resources, all for free, all along all things introspection, spirituality, and happiness. So thank you so much for joining me for this video of Comprehending Consciousness, episode 29, on misinformation and disinformation, and I'll talk to you next time.